All right, welcome in to Onorato and Bagnardi. I can actually say aloha, Bags. Aloha, Chris Onorato, Sean Bagnardi. How are you, brother, from the other side of the world?
Dude, I'm famous for that, right? I am not as good as you because you are, of course, in Hawaii. And what I find most interesting about this is you are also on your honeymoon. I mean, come on, man. What are you doing talking to me on your honeymoon?
This isn't your average, hey, on vacation, got to do a little bit of work. No, this is 6-hour time difference, honeymoon, fresh off the wedding. But as they tell me, right, people who control what we do, Bags, as they tell us, the show must go on. Man, we still have a lot to get to here, and I'm going to force people watching to sit through some pictures of what we've been doing, Ashley and I, in Hawaii on our honeymoon. But before we do any of that, we've got ValleyCats manager Pete Incaviglia on the show. Really fired up to talk to him. I will let him know why he made me sad as a child. Yes, another story about how a guest on the show ruined some of my fandom as a kid. That's Pete Incaviglia coming up with the ValleyCats here shortly. The NFL released its schedule middle of the week. You know that becomes a primetime event every single year. We're going to dive into what games are really on our radar going into this season, especially with the 4 teams of interest in the capital region. Russell Westbrook has set a record that I have long kind of poo-pooed, but I'm ready to jump on board here that this is legit. It's worth talking about in the NBA. We're going to do that as we get into the NBA's final weekend in the regular season. You're watching Onorato and Bagnardi on the News Channel 13, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube pages, and, of course, on My 4. Let's get it going, Bags.
This is Onorato and Bagnardi, brought to you by Outfit House.
All right, Bags, here we go, man. The NFL season feels like it's here because the schedule's been released, because we continue to talk about the fallout from the draft, and, of course, the Aaron Rodgers saga in Green Bay. First, just your overall thoughts here on the schedule release. Do you pore over this thing and look at, okay, who do the Jets have week 1? How many primetime games do we have as a Jets fan? And when do we see the NFL get a little bit of humorous with some of the matchups they create for us?
Yeah, so I get into it a little bit. The thing is, we know what the schedule is going to be. The question is, where do the games fall? When do they fall, right? So that takes a little bit out of it, right? There's not much that we don't know going in except for just exactly how the pieces fall. But we know the Jets are going to play X team and Y team. So yes, I put a decent amount of stock into it. I, of course, always want to look at all the week 1 matchups. I want to look at who the Jets are playing, certainly their entire schedule and how things shake out. I don't necessarily dive deep into the different primetime matchups or how many primetime appearances the Jets may have, because right now, to me, the Jets aren't really deserving of any primetime matchups. If my team was better, I would look for that, but I know we're going to get all the Jets games here locally, and I'm going to get to see them at least. So for you as a Green Bay fan, you're probably eyeing how many times are they going to be on national TV so I can watch those games here without having to go to a bar or sign up for some kind of cable package or something. But so yes and no. I don't make a huge deal out of it, but I certainly want to take a look at it when it comes out.
I love it because the NFL has a real sense of humor when it comes to scheduling games. And we see it immediately in week 1. So if you haven't caught up on who's playing who in what week, the headliner, honestly, week 1 is not that the Bucs, the defending Super Bowl champs, are going to host the Cowboys, which is a very sexy matchup on Thursday night to kick off the season. It's Jets at Panthers, two teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. All eyes, or a lot of them anyway, are going to be on that game, at least for a little bit, to see how Sam Darnold plays against his former team, the Jets. So week one, to me, when I saw that immediately out of the gate, Darnold against his old team, I mean, come on. Is the NFL looking for ratings or what?
There's no doubt, and I'm certainly excited by that matchup. Of course, as you know, I was not a guy, and I'm still not a guy who was very down on Darnold. But as a Jets fan, we obviously have to turn the page, and we have no choice but to get excited about Zach Wilson and to move forward and know that he's our quarterback here, and we need him to be the quarterback of the future. So the last thing you want, as a Mets fan who just got to watch Matt Harvey pitch against the Mets, the last thing that you would want is for a guy like that, after everything that just happened, to go out and beat you week one. So yeah, it puts a little extra oomph into week one when you know, as a Jets fan, that you've got to get off to a good start if you're going to have any kind of season at all. So I certainly will be locked in on that matchup. But there are certainly better games too that will draw my attention week one. And you mentioned it, man, Thursday, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Before we get into what the Giants and Bills are specifically doing, the game on the schedule for the Patriots to look out for, and this is anybody in the NFL, if you're a fan, right? Not just in the capital region, if you happen to be a Patriots fan, but this is going to be around the country, of course, is week 4 when Brady goes back to Foxborough. We finally get Bucs Patriots with Brady on the other sideline. Again, man, a matchup that I just cannot wait for. A fan of neither team, a game that I will be glued to.
And who will you be rooting for in that matchup, just out of curiosity?
Look, as a Packers fan, I should tell you the Patriots because they don't get in the way in the NFC.
Right.
But there's something about a player going back to his old stomping grounds and still finding a way to win, isn't there? I mean, I feel like some of my emotional pull will be towards Brady.
Do you feel this is more Brady versus Belichick than it is Brady versus the Patriots?
Yes, because look, the fans are going to give him a standing ovation. Will they have a video tribute ready for him when he comes back? Probably. So yes, it will be Brady Belichick. It won't be necessarily Brady Patriots, because I think the fans in the stadium will kind of be one of like, hey, we hope he plays really well, but we don't want him to win. That type of thing. You know, they're not going to be rooting really against him. This
will be my first time rooting for a Tom Brady-led team since, I don't know,
Super Bowl?
Terry was kicking field goals, you know, back when they were underdogs. Because, yes, I will have to root against the Patriots as a Jets fan. You just have to do that. And look, I'm not going to say I'm turning around on Brady, because I'm not. But how can you not respect this guy, man? I mean, for what he has done, and just to move on to a different team and to still have that continued success and to still be basically the face of the league and a dominant player in terms of him going out there winning Super Bowls at his age, it's just really incredible. So you have to tip your hat to him. And look, if anybody is going to be out there playing against the New England Patriots, this Jets fan's got to root for him.
We have ValleyCats manager Pete Incaviglia coming up here in just a few minutes. Hang with us. We're going to keep with the NFL schedule here, Bags. And let's stay in the division, right? Since we started with the Jets and now onto the Patriots in the AFC East. The Bills open with the Steelers, which is a really interesting matchup. But I'm more interested in seeing Buffalo at Kansas City a few weeks later, because to me, I mean, look, we all know what the matchup was in the playoffs. But to me, this is just that first early test for Buffalo a year later. Okay, can you find a way to beat Mahomes now? And if something you do early on in the regular season, is that going to be a foreshadowing of what we might see in January from this Bills team? So I like the early test for the Bills at Arrowhead.
Me too. And that's exactly what it is. It is a test. You see, because in football, you are not going to do something like you might do in another sport because each game is so important. You want to win that game. So as a Nets fan, I just watched the Nets play the Bucks 2 games in a row not that long ago, right? Well, that could be a potential second round matchup in the Eastern Conference. And I noticed in watching those games, even though they were back to back on the schedule, so it kind of had a playoff series kind of feel, you could tell that both teams were really keeping some of their cards close to their vest. They weren't going to reveal everything that they might do. You want to view it as a test to see, okay, can this matchup work? Can this defense work? But at the same time, I got the impression they're holding back. No, we are going to save some things for the playoffs and not tip our hand too much. Football, I think it's a different story. And I think this will be a test early on for Buffalo to see. I mean, we know they're one of the best teams in the AFC, but you prove that to yourself by how you do against the Kansas City Chiefs. And if they are going to not just be, and they're not just a one-year type of team, this is a good team. And I think they are going to have playoff success this year. But if you're going to go through the AFC, you're going to have to go through Kansas City. And that is a good early test to see exactly how you stack up and how much work you might have to do before the end of the season to see how ready you are.
All right, the Giants open with the Broncos. They're going to play the AFC West and the NFC South, which means they get Brady as well.
Yes.
Which means they'll face Darnold. But Denver is the opener, and everything you're hearing right now is, well, that matchup is kind of unless Aaron Rodgers really does get traded to the Broncos. Then that becomes a week 1 matchup that everybody is keyed in on. But obviously we know with the Giants here, week 2, it jumps out at me right away against Washington, the division champs from last year. Again, maybe the best defense, certainly one of the best defenses in the league, but the best defense in that division. And so how does Daniel Jones hold up against that defense, especially the front that is really a pass rush heavy? And what do the new weapons look like? How early is Saquon Barkley back in the mix for the Giants? All the questions go into that one. But for me, it's week 2. Okay, how do you hold up against a division team like Washington?
Do they have a name yet? No. Right?
No,
they don't. Yes, I'm with you there. Look, this is now the 3rd week in a row on this show where we're talking about Aaron Rodgers potentially not being in Green Bay. Have you moved the needle at all on what percentage you believe that to be a reality, that he might not be there?
Well, what I say last week, a Packers reporter last week said he thinks it's a 5% chance that Rodgers is back in Green Bay. I hope it's a heck of a lot higher than that. And you're hearing some things lately now that, like, well, Rodgers is a little annoyed with the Schefter report because it's not completely true, and he also didn't intend that to get out. So, okay, which is it? Is it untrue or is it true and you didn't want it to get out? I think there's enough in question here that I've said all along, the Packers aren't trading Aaron Rodgers. They just aren't going to do it. You'd be foolish to do it. Doesn't make sense. Even if somebody bowled you over with an offer, I just don't see how you can trade the greatest quarterback in your franchise's history. Doesn't make sense to me.
I'm with you. Circling back to the Giants here, I agree that early on will be really important for them. I'm with you 100% on the Saquon thing. I think this team goes as he goes. So to see how he comes out of the gate early could be a real indicator of what this team can do. And when you're a team like the Giants, similar to the Jets, where it's like, there are some expectations there, not through the moon. I think it's really important to get off to a fast start. So yes, even in that week 1 matchup, let's go. If Denver's a team, if Aaron Rodgers isn't there, like go win that game. So some early tests for sure for them, division game in particular, like you said in week 2, because division wins early can help you just as much as division losses early can hurt you. It can really set the tone for the season moving forward. So look, I am confident in the Giants this year. I think the Giants are going to be a playoff team. But if they get off to a really slow start, I'm not as confident in their ability to turn things around. So I think it's important for them to get out of the gate and get a couple wins in the books in the first few weeks.
All right, Bags. ValleyCats manager Pete Incaviglia is our guest this week. Fired up to talk with him. I have some bad history with Pete that he doesn't even know about.
Oh, great.
Okay? And as you know, with me, it all comes back to being a fan at some point in my life, and how one of Pete's teams dashed my dreams of seeing my team win a World Series.
This all comes back to you.
It's always about me. You know that. Yeah. We're going to talk with the Cats manager, Pete Incaviglia, next right here on Onorato and Bagnardi. Hang on.
Happiness is found in simple things. The sun on your face, sharing laughs, at the campground, getting wet, relaxing together, the love of family. There's never been a better time to go outside and play. Alpenhaus Pool Spa Boat and RV, bringing families together and creating memories since 1964.
Teams, athletes, organizations. We're transforming the custom apparel industry through product and purpose. Claim your crown.
And now, back to Onorato and Bagnardi. Brought to you by Alpenhaus.
We're brought to you by Alpenhaus. Our thanks to all of our sponsors here on Onorato and Bagnardi. All right, Shawnee, baseball season is here in the pros, but we got robbed last year, obviously, in the Capital Region. Without the ValleyCats, we are so glad to have them back now, and obviously all the good news that's moving forward about having fans back in venues everywhere, but especially outdoor venues, right? I mean, a huge deal here now that we're going to see not only games played at Joe Bruno Stadium, but actually fans in the seats. And our guest this week on Onorato and Bagnardi is Pete Incaviglia, the skipper. Pete, it's so good to see you. Thank you for taking the time with us, Chris Onorato and Sean Bagnardi. First off, how are you? I hope healthy, and I can only imagine ready to go, I'm sure, for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward. We're getting on the field today for the first time, so we're all excited. You got 33 players coming in, and everybody's itching to get back to playing baseball and doing baseball stuff.
All right, let me just get some of the awkwardness out of the way here, Sean, okay?
Please, thank you.
Pete, I got to tell you, one of your teams really still bugs me to this day, and it is the 93 Phillies. I grew up an Atlanta Braves fan, and you guys just, you and Kruk and Dalton and Dykstra and Dave Hollins with his grand slam off Greg Maddux in that series, the NLCS. To this day, it is still burned in my memory. So I'm going to get over some of that awkwardness here. I can't wait to meet you in person, but just know that that's underlying here in our relationship.
I got you. Nobody expected us to really do much that year, and definitely not, beat the Braves, in the playoffs. But, it was an unusual team, kind of a bunch of blue-collar guys that love to go play baseball and played the game the right way. And we just went out and competed. And, we knew at the end of the day that win, lose, or draw, we knew we didn't leave anything on the field. And, I tell you what, it was quite fun going into Atlanta and hearing that silence when Lenny hit that home run.
Yeah, I bet it was. All right, Pete, I got to ask you about something. You're probably so sick of answering questions about this, but I got to ask you about what you did in college, man. For people who don't know, Pete is the all-time single-season leader in home runs and RBIs in the NCAA. Pete hit 48 home runs in 1985 at Oklahoma State and 143 ribbies. Pete, how does a human being hit 48 home runs in a 75 games, 48 home runs, people? How does a human being do that?
Well, I got to tell you, that was a really, when I look at that, that's kind of a team accomplishment. I had three guys hitting in front of me who walked 100 times and scored 100 runs. I had two guys behind me that were really good hitters. And I'm telling you, there were people on base all the time, and it's not like anybody could pitch around me. So it just seemed like, everything, fell in the right place for me. I mean, I don't think I went through a dry spell, the entire season. I ended up, I think I hit like 464 or something. Yeah, so it was a great year. It was kind of a magical year. And, I never really thought, when I broke the home run record that it would last this long, to be honest with you. I mean, records are made to be broken. So, but,
No.
I'm glad that they're still there because for me, it reflects on the ball club we had and my teammates. And, I always refer to it as a team accomplishment.
Chris, I think that home run record will stand the test of time, man. I'm not sure how anybody approaches that number. Pete, I read an article about that season that said you would swing at pitches 3-0 that were out of the strike zone just to stay alive and at bats without taking the base on balls. Is that true? Were you just trying to stay up there so you could get a better pitch to hit?
Yeah, I mean, as a hitter, I mean, you're trying to set guys up, and there would be time it'd be 3-1, and they throw me a breaking ball and I'd swing over the top of it and think they can get me out with a breaking ball again. So, I'd sit on the breaking ball the next pitch, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
All right, Pete, the reason we wanted to talk with you this week is you really kind of already said it because, you're back on the field now for the first time. What was it about this job with the ValleyCats that really attracted you and made you, really want to pursue it as an opportunity in a dugout?
Well, I mean, it starts at the top, ownership, Rick, the president, Matt Callahan, the GM, the facility. This is a tremendous minor league professional baseball organization. I've been in the game for 36 years. I've been in affiliated ball. I've been on the independent side for 15. This is about as good an operation as I've ever seen. And I've worked, for some good ones and I've worked for some bad ones. But, the thing that really drew me here was, how passionate Rick's about the game and Matt and the organization. And, our owner is a fantastic guy. I mean, I talked to just about everybody in baseball, and not a single person had a bad word to say about the ValleyCats. It says, beautiful stadium, great fans. They draw, they come out and support the team. And, it was kind of a no-brainer, when you got a city that supports the team and you have great ownership and great front office and, a terrific facility. I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer. So I was excited, and I'm excited to be here. And as good as I thought it was going to be when I got here, it was better. So I'm really happy to be here. I feel fortunate to be a part of this organization, and I'm going to do my best to put a product on the field that you, the fans, and the organization are going to be really proud of.
So, Pete, we know the ValleyCats are going to draw because it's just a great night out, period, in the Capital Region. It's a lot of fun to go to a ball game. What would you say to fans, though, who might be, the real baseball fans who might be a little bit worried and say, wait a minute, didn't this team just lose its minor league affiliation? Are we going to see the same caliber of baseball? What kind of talent are we going to see? What would you say to that in terms of the kind of players that you are going to bring in and the level of play that we'll see on the field this year?
Well, they're going to see a better brand of baseball, first of all, because, the New York Penn League's about development. Whether a guy, is hitting 0.82 or he's got a 9 ERA, he's going to get his innings and get his at-bats. We play to win here. I mean, we're just like a major league team, except on a smaller level. I mean, guys have to earn the right to put that uniform on and, respect the emblem on the chest and play the game the right way. So I think as fans, you're going to enjoy more because you're going to see a lot more passion in the game. You're going to see guys play harder. You're going to see guys play with a sense of urgency. You're going to see guys that play in the big leagues, all the way down to, your top talented college players. So I think, I enjoy this model better because it's winning's why you play the game. It's not about development here. You know what I mean? So, I've been on the affiliated side. It's not fun when you got a guy hitting 0.82 going to the plate and the guy who was a 50th round pick hitting 330 sitting on the bench, and I'm kind of looking at him, looking at me. I said, man, I don't get it either, dude. And I just, it comes down from the top. So it's a better model. It's a better brand of baseball. And I promise you, you'll love what you see on the field.
All right. I think you just kind of answered my next question, and that was going to be, with the way baseball is trending, and I know so many people are, analytically driven, and a lot of organizations are, and we all kind of start to wonder, Pete, what is the role of the manager in today's game? How do you view your role as a manager in that dugout? How many responsibilities do you have, and then how much of a fingerprint do you envision having on each and every game?
Well, yeah, I mean, it falls on me, retaining players and, bringing people in and, things like that. I mean, Matt Callahan really helps me out. We've been getting players in, with physicals and vaccinations and, working around some schedules here at the stadium. But, to answer your question, and let me see if I get this right. What was the back end of your question?
So, I mean, I guess how much of a fingerprint do you plan to have on each game that the Cats play, and what is really, I guess, the role and the significance of a manager in today's game?
Well, I mean, I'm going to manage, the way I've always managed. I mean, analytics are great and some of it's really good, but there's a human side to this game. There's a human element to this game. And, that's where your manager comes in. You got to read people. You don't know on that particular day if a guy got in a fight with his wife, got in an accident, mom's sick. You have to be able to you have to have a feel of the clubhouse. And that's the human element side that I think analytics can't predict. And so for me, analytics, some of the analytics, yeah, I agree. It's, very interesting, and I think some of it's very good. But you just can't discard the human element, And for me, with this team, I believe you build a team with people and not numbers per se. Until analytics can measure a man's heart, that's got to be a part of the game. Because, I was 0 for 18 against Roger Clemens. Okay, I had like 11 strikeouts, but down the line, I hit 2 or 3 home runs off him. That doesn't mean analytically it says, oh, don't play this guy. Well, it also could mean, hey, he's due. Right. You know what I mean? So, you can look at analytics half full, half empty. I get it. There's a lot of information out there. And like I said, some of it's very good, but you cannot discard the human element. You have to have your hand on the clubhouse. You got to know your players. You got to check in with them. So for me, that's the way I manage. It's all about my players, having a good feel for the players, having a good feel for the game. I mean, you can't pre-manage a game because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the scoreboard tells you everything you need to know on how you manage a game. I don't think you can predict that, okay? Because we're human beings playing the game. So we're not robots. So I don't know, how all that kind of fits. All I'm saying is the human element part is for me, the most important part because it's unpredictable.
All right, one more from me, Pete, here. I got to ask you a stupid question because that's part of what I do.
That was no stupid question.
And this is, wait a year. So this is one that I asked Chris. Chris is newly married. He's on his honeymoon right now in Hawaii. This is a question that I asked Chris and his fellow groomsmen in the limo on the way from the church to the reception, and it garnered much debate among the groomsmen. So I'd like you to settle the debate. If you could take an average Joe Schmo like me or Chris and throw him in the batter's box, and you get to face Jacob deGrom, how many pitches would it take? He's at his best. He's mixing his pitches. He's throwing that fastball at 100, his off speed in the 90s. How many swings would it take for an average Joe Schmuck here, like one of us guys, to even foul one off? I'm just talking about make contact. And let's assume here that we don't get tired from just swinging a million times and he doesn't get tired. He can just keep throwing. How many pitches does it take before we even touch one foul?
And you're talking about game reps. He's
Yeah.
yeah.
On his game.
If he could throw 150, 200 pitches, I don't think you guys would touch a pitch. Not one.
I told you. I told you.
Chris was right.
Man. And the only reason I tell you this is because I saw Nolan Ryan. There was a raffle when I played with Nolan in Texas. And a guy won, and he got the hit off Nolan Ryan. Well, I think the guy thought Nolan was just going to go throw BP. Nolan came out blowing 96, 98, 100. And, I mean, this guy had no chance. He quit after 6 pitches.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't realize, how hard it is to hit a ball going, 100 miles an hour with a round bat. And you don't realize how scary that is until you get in the box. And people that don't do it every day, we did it every day. So it's part of our repetition. It's just like you do your job. I couldn't come in and do your job because you have a repetition and you can do it so fast. And you know what I mean? That's the same with baseball. If you don't play the game at a high level on a regular basis, you have zero chance, especially with DeGrom, because by far probably the best pitcher in the game right now.
Will you let us come to a practice and just stand in the box one day and maybe see if we could take a cut?
Absolutely. Come down, man. Come down and take beeps and shag. I mean, yeah, I'd love to have you guys, man. More the merrier,
that might
brother.
be fun for a show, Chris, that we should
We're gonna do
that.
that.
I'll tell you what. Let's try BP first, and then we'll move up to the game. Let's just try to take some BP, baby steps.
Perfect.
Let me tell you something. If I want a raffle to get into the box against Nolan Ryan, I am passing that ticket to somebody else.
No,
Not
you
mine.
can't, because that's once in a lifetime to say I got to stand in there, man. You got to just got to close your eyes and pray.
The guy got the full Nolan Ryan. He actually threw his bow tie right underneath his chin, which was his signature pitch. Yeah, so he got the full. Yeah, exactly.
I'm out.
Exactly.
Pete, well, for all the bad things I said about you and your Phillies teams, man, as Sean said, I am on my honeymoon. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to talk with you and to meet you at least this way. But I know we'll meet in person, certainly post-game interviews and stuff like that as we cover the team for News Channel 13. So thank you so much for the time. Best of luck this season. And like I said, I know we'll be seeing you soon.
All right, great. Congratulations, and thanks for having me. Call me anytime.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Pete.
Pete Incaviglia. That was awesome. And yeah, the 93 Phillies still burned in my memory, but really cool to have somebody of Pete's caliber right in the dugout for the ValleyCats this season. I think that alone will drum up a ton of interest in the Capital Region with this season coming around.
No doubt, man. Very modest from Pete
No
talking
doubt.
about his college days. We're talking a number there that's one of those unreachable, like Wilt's 100s, right?
Yeah, a few guys have challenged it, like in the low 40s, but not close enough to 48, where I'd say that's definitely going to fall one day.
75 games, though.
I know.
I mean, that's absurd, man. I don't
Wild.
know if you couldn't get 48 hits in 75 games. I mean, that's just it's hard to believe. It really is. And as far as the ValleyCats are concerned, man, I think they've got somebody who, I like hearing that mentality about just going out there and winning. Now, of course, he's right in that when you're an affiliate, you've got to develop guys. I mean, that's your job. It's more important to a pro team for you to get a guy to a certain level than whether or not you get a win or a loss on any given night. So I like that. That's a good thing for him to point out, that now this transition to this independent league, you're going to be seeing just a manager trying to win the game. Not that there won't be any development involved in it, but certainly now the focus is on going out there and getting wins. And I just think as a fan, like I said, it's a great night out. So you might have fans there who are like, well, I'm just enjoying a baseball game. I don't necessarily care who wins and loses, but it increases the level of play you see in the field, and that's going to make it more exciting to watch.
Yep, no doubt. All right, Bags, when we come back, history was made in the NBA this past week, and I have always kind of just dismissed this statistic because the way the game has changed. But when you break an all-time record, it needs to be recognized. And honestly, I'm not swinging all the way back the other way here, but I am impressed at what Russell Westbrook has done in the NBA with triple doubles. And we've also got the final weekend of the NBA regular season. Let's look ahead to the playoffs a little bit here. We're going to do that next on Onorato and Bagnardi.
At Marcella's Appliance Center, our commitment is to you, providing essential appliances that families depend on for cooking, refrigeration, cleaning, and sanitation, plus appliance repair. You can have peace of mind that Marcella's is here for you today and every day, like we have been since 1957, helping you make the right choice with trusted brands like Whirlpool, Maytag, KitchenAid, Genair, and many more. Shop Marcella's Appliance Center in-store, online, or by phone. We're here for you.
Depressed, overworked, job sucks, underappreciated. When life sucks, just say Dillagaff. Our clothing line puts the FU back into fun. Nothing will give you greater satisfaction. Dillagaff isn't just an attitude, it's a lifestyle. Some people ride the crazy train, we drive that mother. Check out our selection at DillagaffUSA.com.
And now, back to Onorato and Bagnardi. Brought to you by Alpin House.
All right, Bags, we're coming up on the NBA playoffs here. The big news in the last week, of course, is that the Knicks clinched a playoff spot. Kevin Huerter and the Hawks clinched a playoff spot. Now, these were all foregone conclusions. We realized it was going to happen. And then it was kind of like, how are these teams going to fit in terms, can they avoid that play-in tournament, if you
Exactly.
will? And I think both will. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Knicks back in the postseason, man. This is a big deal, whether or not they win a first round series or not. This is a big deal. The Knicks have taken this step under Tom Thibodeau.
It is a big deal, and yeah, they're going to be fine. They'll avoid the play-in. The Hawks too. So, look, as we've said on this show before, the Knicks are really playing with house money at that point. They've accomplished all they needed to this season by getting to the playoffs. They've established or started to establish a new culture there under Coach Thibodeau. They are now forming an identity and becoming a destination, as we've said. So when there's a big free agent out there, now New York looks like a place that is New York again. It's Madison Square Garden. It's because all of that has always been there, but big guys, big stars have looked at it and said, but it's a mess. The culture is a mess. The organization is a mess. You start to turn that around, factor in the bright lights of New York City, and now you've really got something. But as far as this season, like I said, it's all about that identity, being that defensive-minded team. Julius Randle's really emerged as certainly an all-star in this league, but not a superstar guy. So without a major superstar player, you know, they're playing well as a team and doing it together. And as long as they continue that in the playoffs, which they will, they'll continue that identity, continue to play hard. Then they've done their job this season, win or lose in that first round.
Who's the most dangerous team in the East not named Philadelphia or Brooklyn?
Honestly, I would put Miami almost just slightly ahead of the Bucks at this point. There's something about that Heat team, the way they're coached. Let's not forget they were in the finals last year. We'll see on them. Milwaukee's certainly right up there, though. And if Giannis is a guy who's going to start knocking down some outside shots, that makes how you approach them defensively very different in the playoffs. You can't just load up in the box and try to keep him out. Now things change in a 7-game series against Milwaukee. So they're a little bit more interesting to me. I'm not just writing them off. Not that I had done that, but like I had to some degree in the past. But right now for me, it's just a little bit of an edge to the Miami Heat because of what they accomplished last season.
I'm on Miami too, as the most dangerous team, not in Brooklyn or Philadelphia, just because of what we saw last year. Butler being kind of that alpha guy that we just haven't seen Giannis be yet in the postseason. And when it comes to Giannis, for as great as he is, and I know he is, I kind of need to see it out of him in a playoff series where he just takes over. or a game 6 or game 7 where he decides we're not losing this game. Like, put Milwaukee on his back and take them to a series title. Do you care that Brooklyn may not have home court advantage if there is a game 7 between Brooklyn and Philly?
Well, they're definitely not. I'm concerned at this point about whether or not they would have it game
Milwaukee.
7 against Milwaukee in the second round. No, because ultimately to win a championship, you've got to win on the road. I think it's unlikely that in either series the home team would just go ahead and win every game. So no, I think this Nets team, if they're healthy and they've got the big three going right, they should be able to win anywhere. And you only got to win one on the road if you're going to take care of business at home. So it wouldn't bother me. I mean, you'd prefer the game at home, certainly, but I wouldn't be as worried about it as I might be in years past with different teams.
All right, out west, the most interesting storyline is what?
The Lakers.
The Lakers.
Yeah.
One, okay, paramount above any seeding is LeBron's health.
Of course.
Okay. How's he going to hold up in the postseason? When will we see him? Then how much does it matter if they have to go through the play-in process? Does that matter? Or are you like, you know what, LeBron's healthy, AD's healthy, they've got the pieces in place, let them play as many games as possible. There's nobody out west that I'm really that worried about, or the mileage that maybe would build up because you're playing multiple games just to kind of get in, if you will.
I'd be worried about the Lakers in that 9-10 if they fell to there, which they won't, because then it's one and done. You could lose on any one game, any given night, right? Then you're looking at, we could be out of this thing. Could they lose to Golden State perhaps in a first play-in matchup? It's possible, but I don't see them losing 2 in a row to be kept out of the whole thing. So that means, in my eyes, they're going to be there. And if they're going to be there, and if LeBron's healthy, I don't care where they are. I don't care what seed they are. I don't care who they're playing. I don't care about home court advantage. They would be my favorites in the West, again, if LeBron James is healthy.
All right, you said you don't care, you don't care, you don't care. I used to say, Bags, I don't care. I don't care that Russell Westbrook is putting up ridiculous triple-double numbers. But here it is from the last week that Russell Westbrook has now moved ahead of Oscar Robertson for most triple-doubles all time. This is significant, and I'll tell you why it's significant in my eyes. Okay. Because the triple-double boom occurred, say, like 4 or 5 years ago, right, where it was just taking off. It was every single night, the guy at the top, Westbrook, and then the guy in the 8 slot, James Harden, seemed like they were going to triple-double every night. Mm-hmm. But Westbrook has really elevated himself beyond Harden. I mean, look at Harden now, 58. And look, that's a good number. 58's a good number. And Westbrook's at 182. So it felt like every night Westbrook and Harden are putting up triple doubles. And I just kind of got fatigued with it all. Like, yeah, of course they are, because there are more shots now than ever before. Well, not ever before, but there are more shots now than there have been in the last 30 years. Okay, the 80s, it was a different game too. More shots leads to more rebounds.
Yep.
There's a lower shooting percentage, leads to more rebounds. But more shots also equates to more points. And so you're going to get more assists and, of course, more even personal points. So to me, I just didn't get caught up in the triple-double hype. But those numbers right there, hard to argue with how impressive Westbrook has been all around, right? His all-around game. Now, it hasn't led to winning on any level, but it feels like he's doing just about as much as he can do.
Put up the board one more time, if you don't mind. So for me, what's really impressive about this is that this was one of those numbers, not quite Pete Incaviglia in college, but this is one of those numbers, Oscar Robertson, where I had always looked at it and thought, no, that's untouchable. Because if Magic Johnson could only, and I'll put only in air quotes here, only get to 138, there's no way anybody's going to catch the 181 of Oscar Robertson, and even Jason Kidd, who's my guy. I mean, I saw most of those triple doubles there when he was doing them in New Jersey with the Nets. even if he can't come close to Oscar Robertson, I thought, no, that's probably untouchable. And even after the game changed, and obviously it has, because you're right, you point out Harden there. How about Jokic already at number 9 too? Another guy obviously playing today who has racked up a good number of triple doubles in not a seriously long amount of time. But I did think that number was unreachable. So for Westbrook to do that in any era is incredible. And now you got to start thinking about what number is he going to finish with. I mean, he's going to crack 200 for sure. So look, I mean, the sky's the limit. Could he set a number now that even despite the way the game is played today, that we then view as unreachable? I think he could.
One last look here, just because I have a question on it. Is Fat Lever the only guy on this list who won't be in the Hall of Fame when all's said and done?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Westbrook, obvious, because you can't look at that and say he's not a Hall of Famer. Of course, we know LeBron, obviously, we know Harden, and I think Jokic is going to win the MVP this year. He is well on his way if he just stays healthy and keeps doing what he's doing, even close to the level he's doing it at. He'll ultimately be a Hall of Famer too. It's too early to declare that, but like I said, if that continues, the numbers will be there, and probably the winning too. I feel bad for Denver this year because losing Murray really takes them out of the equation for me in terms of being a championship team. But that might be the only thing that takes them out. Honestly, if he was still there, you start to look at that team now with the questions for the Lakers. Like, they're right up there, man. They are right up there. And we don't see them too much out because they're out on the West Coast, but they are an extremely talented team led by a guy in Jokic who always makes the right play. And as you see in those numbers there, does a little bit of everything for his team.
Look, I mean, even if he just stays at this pace for a little bit longer, and it's an elevated pace, I get it, but I'm not saying he has to play any better than he currently is. Jokic, no, he's a surefire Hall of Famer, because I think a lot of people are going to remember back to, like, we've never seen anything like this guy before, really. So that is going to stick out in people's minds. Like, he's one, unique, two, great. So we have to put him in. I'm with you. I think 9 of the 10 there end up in the Hall of Fame, Fat Lever being the only guy who doesn't get in. All right, Bags, when we come back, more controversy with Bob Baffert and one of his horses testing positive for a substance. But I'll tell you why it's good for horse racing that Baffert has Medina Spirit in the Preakness Stakes. This is good for the sport, actually, okay? You'll listen to me on the other side of the break here. And then we got the Mets without DeGrom and the Yankees really finding their stride. Baseball next as well on Onorato and Bagnardi.
Happiness is found in simple things. The sun on your face, sharing laughs, at the campground, getting wet, relaxing together, the love of family. There's never been a better time to go outside and play. Alpenhaus Pool Spa Boat and RV. Bringing families together and creating memories since 1964.
Teams, athletes, organizations. We're transforming the custom apparel industry through product and purpose. Claim your crown.
And now, back to Onorato and Bagnardi. Brought to you by Alpenhaus.
All right, Bags. I think people who are real horse racing fans are tired of this storyline. Bob Baffert wins a big race, and it comes out that the horse tested positive for a substance not allowed. It was for inflammation with Medina Spirit. So they go through, Baffert and his attorney go through the whole appeals process, because while he's going to be banned at Churchill, they of course want to be able to run at Pimlico for the Preakness. And all along, I said to Ashley, and I've said to anybody who will listen to me, horse racing needs Medina Spirit to run. And yes, it's a risk that the horse wins and there's another positive test, and that becomes another black eye on the sport. I get it. But what does it do in the meantime? What does it do for the overall interest of the sport? And that is, it brings more people to the table. Anytime a Baffert horse wins the Kentucky Derby, you're mostly going to see people follow up and watch the Preakness because you want to see, is there a Triple Crown in play here going to Belmont? So I get that. You're automatically built in some viewers because of that. But the interest is, does this horse win again? And if it does, is it clean this time around? And then are we going to Belmont with controversy surrounding the Triple Crown? I will always say controversy is good for any sport. It makes it more interesting. You need a, quote, villain, if you will, in any sport.
Your Tiger argument with golf.
Correct.
Yeah.
You either love him or you hate him, but you're going to watch him either way, because even if you don't like him, you're going to watch to root against him.
Yeah.
It's why, baseball is better when the Yankees are good. College football is better when Notre Dame is good. Because fans like to root for those teams. Cowboys, same thing in the NFL. Fans like to root for those teams, but they almost just as much like to root against those teams. So this becomes a kind of like horse racing fan against Baffert, which is good for the sport, because I always believe you need somebody in that villainous role.
Okay. Baffert is full of crap, right? When he says that it was in the substance was in an ointment that he didn't know was being put on the horse, that we didn't know was in the ointment.
This is what we heard the last time around from him.
Let me ask you this. Whose job is it to know?
Well, it should be the trainers.
It's his job to know everything that's going on with that horse, in particular before a race like the Kentucky Derby, everything, especially when you've had allegations in the past of doing stuff like this. How do you not make sure, okay, anything involving this horse, this animal gets touched by anybody else, let alone have something put on its body, I need to know exactly everything that's going on there. Yep. So for him to say he didn't know, he's either bad at his job, which can't be the case, or he's full of crap. And I think he's full of crap. And honestly, I'm sick of Baffert. I'm not a huge horse racing guy to begin with, but it's guys like that really ruin it entirely for me, man, to the point where I'm almost like, I have no interest. I couldn't care less about the Preakness. I don't care. You've tainted the most important event in your sport for the year. It only gets worse from there. Like, you can't come back from that.
And one final thought here, Bags, on this anyway, is tied to what you were saying. If he didn't know, Baffert, somebody did. We presume somebody did. Or if absolutely no one in the Baffert camp knew, somebody has to be held responsible for this, right? If you see this in the world of politics, right, where something goes wrong and the president or a high-level senator says, I don't know how that happened, I don't know who did it, it shouldn't have happened, somebody gets fired, right?
It's your job to know. It's his job to know, period.
Okay, but even if he just says, I didn't know, somebody gets fired. Now, in college basketball, it's all garbage when the head coach says, I didn't know this was going on with illegal recruiting practices, right? But assistant coaches then get fired. Somebody is held responsible, and we just don't see that here with Baffert. And again, I'll just go back to this. There needs to be an overall governing body when it comes to horse racing. It can't be by the state or by the track, or it has to be an overall governing body.
And that's in the works now on the federal level. Yes. So we'll see how that gets turned around. And I don't pretend to know everything about horse racing, and to sit here and say that a lot of people other than the trainer handle a horse or have interactions with a horse or treat a horse. That may very well be the case. But if you're Baffert or any trainer and you're running a horse in the Kentucky Derby of all races, everything about what that horse does and what that horse goes through, you've got to be up on. That's the bottom line. I'm saying that as a novice here of horse racing, but that's just the bottom line. And when you talk about that responsibility, somebody's got to be held responsible for that. If it's a horse, the horse can't be held responsible. In horse racing, it's got to be the trainer. And in this case, that's Baffert. I don't believe a word he says. It's happened too many times. To me, he's bad for the sport. And I think ultimately he's just full of crap when he says he didn't know.
Our Yankees are finding their way, and we've got what everybody wants in the AL East, and that is Yankees, Red Sox towards the top of that division, and it'd be fun if it really continued that way. I know, we'll get to it. If it continued that way and we saw those two rivals duke it out. How are you feeling about your Mets at the top of the NL East without DeGrom now, but also without – look, you have harped on the lack of offense this team has produced this year, and yet you're still at the top of this division. That has to make you feel good as we get closer towards the middle of May.
It does. This division has been less than impressive, as you know, being a fan of one of the teams in it. But that being said, that's what you have to stay with them, and you have to ride it out. And the Mets have done that to the point where they are sitting on top right now, and they've had they put together a good winning streak this past week. And look, everything except DeGrom being hurt is looking up. So I'm excited about where this team is going and what they can do. They got to get DeGrom back. They got to get Carrasco back. They got to get Syndergaard back. And then we can really talk about what this team can do as far as potentially being in championship contention.
All right, this is where I remind Bags to unmute his mic. Only because I'm going to take you through my honeymoon so far, Bags.
Oh, here we go.
We are at the Ondas Maui in Wailea. Beautiful, beautiful spot. We swam through some waterfalls. A great hike with Hike Maui. Had a little lunch in like a natural pool. Very, very cool. We saw some of, like pineapples and a bunch of tropical fruits and flowers that are native to Hawaii. That is called a ginger. So, of course, I had to hold it up to my own head and represent the gingers. Yeah, that was really, really cool. That was our first day on Maui. We went chasing waterfalls. Then day 2, we did some snorkeling. So this is nice. Me and Ash. We're going a little snorkeling here.
Oh, look at this.
GoPro, of course, comes in handy for something like this. So it's been a great trip so far. I hate having to spend some of it with you, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah, man, this looks like a lot of fun. We tried snorkeling when we were in Hawaii, my girlfriend and I, several years back, and just it didn't work. The water wasn't clear where we were. It was just a bad area, but we did end up doing it in Thailand, and we got some similar pictures to what you're showing here. Had you ever been snorkeling before?
Yes. Yep. We did snorkeling in Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic. And then everybody said you have to go to Monkey Pod. So we went to Monkey Pod, where they have the #1 rated Mai Tai. So, of course, you have to check out a place like that. And the shoreline, the views, Hawaii, Bags, it's just unbelievable. So we've been having a great time. But, I eventually kind of look forward to getting back to work. I'm not there yet.
Stop.
But eventually I'm kind of, okay, let's get back into the normal day routine of things. But I got a few days left here. I'm going to soak it up as much as I can.
Yeah, I did not feel that way in Hawaii or Thailand. Other vacations I have, especially domestic ones, where you're like, all right, I could kind of go home now. But and don't you feel like you're in a foreign country right now? It's crazy,
right? Ash, we landed. We're driving from the airport to the hotel. I said, this does not feel like America. It doesn't feel like we're in the States.
And that's what's nice about it.
That's what's really nice about it, isn't it? Yeah. I feel far away from you, which is absolutely perfect. Thanks for hanging out again this week, everybody. Appreciate you watching on Facebook, Twitter, and on my 4. We'll see you next week on Onorato and Bagnardi.